In our final exploration of this big project, we're going to be looking at the background. And actually, this will be less of a tutorial and more of just kind of like a behind the scenes walkthrough, that breakdown, that kind of thing. Mostly we have two different kind of smoke layers. We have a blue smoke layer, and then we have, well, actually two pinks. And there's one on the left, one on the right of the pink smoke, and then the background has these stars to it. And it's all just noise. It's all just the noise generator and different things going on with the noise generator, but it's the same kind of stuff we've been looking at with that same old noise generator, just kind of set up in a cool way. So let's look at this. I'm going to go over to another timeline tab that I have open. When you do this, which you can do by going to this little flyout menu and going to panels, timeline, and creating a new timeline panel. And then you could just, with this selected, you could double click a composition. But you need to make sure when you do that, that you switch over the drop down as well. So we're looking at 10A, but I've clicked on this timeline for 10B. So just be aware that you need to click in this drop down and then change this to correspond as well. So in this comp, we have just the smoke. Now I wanted to have this smoke evolve and kind of also feel like it was rising and also feel like it was kind of like coming towards you. And I found that the best way to do that smoothly was actually adjusting the octaves. So if I select on the noise to get to the noise properties and come down here, we have the octaves, which again, when we layer noise to create these kind of effects, we have a series of layers of noise going on, and those layers are actually called octaves. So we have 6 octaves of noise, and setting the octave scale, animating that very slightly, created a more organic push-in than the push-in effect where it's kind of like building up and getting bigger over time. Creates a more organic look, I felt, than just animating, transform scale here or other effects as well. But as we'll see in just a second, that's not the same in every case. But in this case, I liked octave scale the best. Change the color of the fractal noise smoke here in this color section here. Also be aware of this output alpha option. By default, it's set to noise, which means that the noise creates its own transparency. Let me go down here to the bottom left and see if I could turn on the checkerboard and we can see that. Yeah. So normally that's what it's going to create, is this kind of transparency that's based on the fractal noise pattern. But I set the output alpha to opaque to create opaque. It's still semi-transparent because the opacity values are very low over here. But just be aware of that output alpha drop down. I'm going to turn off the checkerboard here. Now, another thing that's pretty interesting, and we'll see it if we go over to the shape tools, is that this blue smoke actually has 2 different masks. And you can see that here in the path group, we have a smoke mask. This is a Bezier mask that I made. It's rough and it's ugly, and it should be. It's fine. These other 2 masks on the side are from the pink smoke layers. I have a setting enabled that allows me to see all masks at once. But this main one that kind of raises up in the center here, that's on my blue smoke layer. That's a mask here. And then I also have an ellipse, which you're not seeing in the center. And you'll notice this blend mode, this difference blend mode, because it's basically cutting a hole in the center because it was getting a little bit crowded with all of the other stuff in the center. So I wanted to kind of remove some of the noise. So I added a feathered ellipse here in the center to remove some blue smoke there. So again, masks, another place where it's really good to be aware of shape generators, path groups, and fills and all of that, because we're using that stuff here in masks as well. Now, let's go over to the stars. And again, I need to change my drop down at the top here, my viewer panel, to the stars final. And here we have the stars. And I really like the way that this turned out by itself. In the context of the chaos of the magic, it doesn't take away too much focus, which I think is a good thing. And I was like trying to not take away too much focus because it doesn't need any focus. Like the story that it's telling is really supportive, and it's a supporting role. It should not be attracting attention. It should be felt more than seen. But when looking at it by itself, I'm really happy with the way that these stars came out. They twinkle, they zoom, they They look kind of cool. They look cool. There's like some dimension to it. And it's just, again, quick, dirty, simple trick. If I select the stars layer here, you'll see that I have a series of modifiers. I'm going to click this effects icon to turn off these modifiers. And you'll see that we just have a simple, like, noise, just noise. And this is exactly the same thing that I did for the sparkles that we just saw a couple tutorials back. So same exact thing here, except in this case, what I did, you'll see that the evolution value, I didn't touch at all, but I did scale up this. So if you look at the transform area of my fractal noise, and I have scale here, you can see the diamond because I animated the scale value. And normally, like I was just talking about with the smoke, I wouldn't animate the scale value because as we zoom in here, it creates a lot of like jumpy animation. But for these stars, that was perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And it made it just feel like a lot more organic to have just kind of random twinkling in these lights. And all I had to do was animate the scale value for that. So then I added a defocus modifier, and that's basically just to defocus. It blurs things a little bit, it softens that a little bit. So there's before and after. So it kind of tones down some of the busyness and chaos of that. And then I did lens distort. I'll get back to that in a second. And I added some glow, which you can see. It kind of makes those stars pop a bit. Big difference, again, before and after with that glow. But the real star of the show here is lens distort. And what lens distort does is it will, I could do a lot of things, I used it to distort the edges as if I were using kind of like a wide angle lens and I had some lens distortion. And then also as part of lens distort, you can add some chromatic aberration. So I have a little bit of chromatic aberration on the sides here. And one of the things I think that worked really well for this is the amount. I animated the amount over time. You could see as I scrub in time, the amount value just like really changing from like almost nothing to something to about 2 over time. And what's kind of cool is that in the beginning phases of the animation, when the magic text is kind of like just coming on, that's when we start to feel this kind of pull along the edges. And as we have, again, this more distorted edge, it's starting to feel like we're pulled into this world. Like there's like a warping that's pulling us in. And by the end, that effect is much more pronounced. So again, I really like the way that this felt. It didn't detract too much from the main story in the center, but as these stars kind of distorted and whatnot along the edges, it really kind of brings the viewer into the world of the story a little bit more.